Today we're looking at 7 lessons you can learn from professional game masters. Now, I do want to emphasize that not everything will work for every game table. You need to consider you and your players' preferences as always. However, if you're new to GMing or still figuring out your game master style, these are all things that you can try out. Also, we'll be showing clips from a variety of amazing game masters, and I will include links down below to the episodes we pull the clips from, just in case you want to watch the entire thing. Rules management. Number 1, know the rules and don't be afraid to explain them to the players so that they understand what they need to do to succeed.
And I can tell you now that you're at your own wedding. I can tell you as a player that you are in a dream, and you, in order to do anything, you're going to have to succeed at these roles. If you succeed at 3 roles before you fail at 3 roles, you will know you are in a dream and be aware of how to deal with it. But for right now, it feels very real to you.
Okay, that example came from Joe O'Brien as he explains the rules for a character recognizing that they're in a dream while running his Delta Green game, Get in the Trunk. Notice that he lays out the rules they'll be using for that specific situation. When something is new for the players or old rules apply in new situations, you need to let players know about the rules that you'll be using. Otherwise, they're just going to be fumbling around in the dark. I do something very similar for skill challenges. When I run a skill challenge in my game, I have an entire video that talks about how to run skill challenges in 5th edition. Probably the exact same thing works in Pathfinder 2 and other games, I'm sure. But anyway, what I do when I'm going to run a skill challenge is I explain to my players exactly how many successes are needed before they reach 3 failures. And sometimes I even tell them what the consequences would be of succeeding or failing that skill challenge. Don't be afraid to explain to your players the rules that you'll be using in situations that are different from the norm and unique. Number 2, don't be afraid to lift the curtain to increase tension and drama at the table. In this next example, the permanent death of a character is on the line.
So you get 5 hit points back. That's huge because that might actually save you from death here. Unless I miss. Whew. Okay.
Well, he just rolled a 30 to hit. This is very high attack bonus.
21 to hit.
Because I'm grappled. Well, because I'm grappled, that hits. I have a 22 AC.
You'll take 5 less damage from this attack because of the defending bone. It's 1d8 plus 11.
Oh my God.
I rolled 7s on the hit and the constrict. Here we go. Just saw a little thing in the chat. Good ruling, Troy. Thank you. Glad you appreciate it. Here it is. It's out. The roll is out of my hand. The life of Halster Price is out of my hands. Another 7.
Oh my God.
Another 18 points of damage. But he takes 5 off of that. So it's, can't do the math fast enough, 13 points of damage.
Alster is at -7 hit points. Constitution score of 14.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're fine. But you are grappled by this thing. So he's unconscious, grappled, and dying. It is Atticus's turn. He's still cowering in fear. But he can act next round.
Okay, so that was from Troy Lavallee of Glass Cannon Live, as he tells the players the damage rolls he had for the last couple of hits to amp up the tension as he's about to roll damage that could result in the permadeath for one of his players' characters. Now, did you notice that he rolled the die and didn't immediately tell them the result, further amping up the tension? He is a devious genius. Genius. Now, at my games, when I use skill challenges, we'll go back to that example again, I usually tell my players what the DC they're trying to hit is. For instance, DC 15. I reveal that number even though I almost always keep DCs a secret from my players. I do this because a skill challenge is a bit different of a game mechanic, and the players knowing what they need to hit over the course of half a dozen to a dozen rolls increases the drama and the tension. And consequently, it lets them know how many times they've succeeded and how many times they've failed, which if you have one failure, tension increases as you continue to roll. If you got 2 failures, high tension because you know you're just one roll, one failure away from complete oblivion, or whatever the consequences are for failing that skill challenge. So I reveal the DCs and I tell them if it's a success or a failure so they can keep track because that increases tension. By the way, folks, our next Kickstarter, The Secret Art of Game Mastery, is now live. We even have a couple early bird specials with huge discounts that will be available for the first few days only. If you're a new game master trying to figure out this whole game mastering business, or a veteran looking for new tips and tricks, you don't want to miss this. My team and I took our collective game master experience, over 100 years worth, and put it into this one book, The Secret Art of Game Mastery. Learn how to design campaigns, design adventures, encounters, maps, manage your game table, deal with problem players, and more. We also created 2 companion books, The Secret Art of Preparation and The Secret Art of Note-Taking. The first walks you through the process of designing and creating your own campaign and adventures, and the second helps you to capture important notes from your game sessions so that you can expertly weave plots and events as the campaign unfolds. Everything is designed to be system agnostic, so it doesn't matter which genre or game system you're using. And the books come in PDF, hardcover, and special edition leather covers that will only be available as part of this Kickstarter. Learn more and back The Secret Art of Game Mastery at the link below. Number 3, don't be afraid to try a new house rule or rule set. But also, don't be afraid to admit when something's not working and change it.
So, out of character, just to give you a rundown, the way it's going to work is Velena is going to be making the starseed. As she does that, things may happen that she might need help with, or you guys need to deal with because it's going to mess you guys up, right? When she can, she will call out a foci. By the start of her next turn, you have to infuse it. And that means you have to touch it and there will be a thing involved, right?
Right.
I'm just, because there's a lot of lore, but now I'm trying to get the mechanics for you guys so you understand it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Velena will always act first in the initiative. She will always be at the top of the initiative, right? She will begin to, when she'll try and construct the thing, there will normally be an event that takes place, or there might be a thing that happens. And then once she's finished that, she can basically call out a foci. You then go and infuse that foci before she takes another turn. If you don't do that, it fails, there will be a consequence, and she can only handle so many failures, right? But when somebody does successfully infuse a foci, they must remain next to it. If you leave that foci, it will become uninfused and you will have to do it again.
Is that an automatic failure then, or?
It would count as an
just
automatic.
restart?
It would count as an automatic failure, and you've got to redo it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did she say there was an order we had to do them all in as
Yes,
well?
she will call out the order. Like, you don't have to worry about that. It is memory, magic, spirit, knowledge, connection, hope.
Now, that was Mark Holmes introducing a new set of special rules to his High Rollers players for a specific encounter. And check out what happens in this next clip from the next game session.
But before we get to your turns in this sort of pseudo encounter, I'd like to ask, do you guys trust me with something? So to explain this, I had some thoughts about the encounter that we last did, and I wasn't happy with some of the things in it. I didn't think that some of it was fair, and also some of it wasn't very interesting or exciting. So and luckily you guys happen to have a demigoddess of time and space. So to kind of retcon some of the things, I'm not gonna change everything, but to make it a bit more fun and a bit more fair, I've made some slight changes to this encounter, right, for these last 3 foci.
Okay, so that clip was from the beginning of the next episode, their next game session, and he explains why he thought the rules weren't working and why he changed them. Now, I've introduced house rules in my games, I think most game masters have, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. So always be willing to evaluate a rule and get rid of it if it's not working. Now, discussing with your players can be helpful as well. For instance, I had a special initiative system that I came up with that I think I shared in a previous video, like a couple years ago perhaps. And my Sword Coast Guard group and I used this initiative system for perhaps a year or so. And then finally, I was kind of starting to not like it a whole lot, and I had a discussion with my players, and several of them didn't like it either, and we actually decided to go back to the base initiative system in the core rules. So don't be afraid to throw something out if it's not working. Talk with your players about it and see what they think too. Narrative description. Number 4, use narrative description to spice up the game and provide immersion.
And then, can I reach in my bag and grab out, in my little pouch, grab out a handful out of my 1,000 ball bearings?
You do have 1,000 ball bearings. I remember that.
1,000 ball
We had money. She bought a lot of ball bearings.
1,000 ball bearings.
Yes.
All right.
And can I take it and just kind of like, you know how you can kind of like take your pocket and kind of flip it inside out and just have a bunch of ball bearings kind of go ting, 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 ting across this
You
way?
hear what sounds like hundreds of tiny metal clanks in succession as ball bearings begin to just spray down the stairs and scattering across the floor of this central makeshift ritual room as they kind of run through the various semblances of gore and the areas of the stonework that are exposed between.
Now that was from Critical Role Campaign 2, and notice how Matt, instead of just saying okay and moving on to the next turn, describes the ball bearings rolling across the floor after Marisha Ray's character tosses them out to impede enemies. Throwing out the ball bearings isn't just a throwaway, isn't just an okay. There's a narrative description that goes along with it that makes it way more interesting than it otherwise would have been. Now, I have talked about narrative descriptions in the past on my videos, and I once got a comment where the person was essentially saying that it can be really hard to develop this habit of narrative descriptions, and it's also hard too because a game master has lots of things they're juggling during a game, and so also being sure to do narrative descriptions can be really taxing. And I get it, I do. The game master has a lot of things going on, and narrative descriptions just add on to it. But this is my personal experience. I've had games where I didn't do narrative descriptions, and I've had other games where I intentionally describe things much better, especially during combat, which is an often overlooked place to have descriptions because we are so focused on combat rules and hit points and keeping track of all the math. And I can tell you that the games where I used descriptions always feel so much better to me. Now that's just my viewpoint as a game master. I imagine my players enjoyed it more. You'll have to ask them though. Actually, let me retract that whole statement about perspective that I said a couple seconds ago because I'm a player in a game right now. And I can tell you that when the game master uses narrative description, it improves my game experience. And when the other players describe what their characters are doing, not just with game mechanics, but with actual descriptions of like, I'm swinging my sword, I'm blah, 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 whatever, that definitely improves my game experience 100%. So it's not just from a game master's perspective, I'm telling you from a player's perspective, it improves the game for me. By the way, if you're finding this information useful, please give me a thumbs up and share this video with others. One of the best ways you can help other game masters is by sharing helpful content. Number 5. However, not all narrative descriptions need to be long and detailed.
She looks at Ethel, and there might even be a little fear in her eyes. You can't tell. She looks human, but also not human. The features are a little elongated. The nose is a little too long. The hair is a little too string-like. Her mouth is a little too wide as she smiles at you.
That was Troy Lavallee, once again, of his Glass Cannon Live show, and he gives a quick and solid description of the hag the characters are fighting. You see, sometimes less is more, as it allows the players to form their own image of something rather than the GM's image of it. You don't need to take up a lot of game time to give a good description that will inspire your players' imaginations. You see, long descriptions of everything can and will bog the game down. Only do that if you know all your players love that stuff and are willing to contribute themselves. I mean, the GM can't do all the work. I think every time that I talk about narrative descriptions, I see comments on my videos, and I think one of the main complaints of folks is that narrative descriptions and describing things takes too long. And what I'm trying to tell you here is that it doesn't need to. It can be short and sweet. In fact, I use short descriptions most of the time in my game. It is my preference, short and sweet. I save the long, detailed descriptions for key moments in the story, such as boss fights and things like that. Number 6, use specific words or language to drive home the emotion or atmosphere you're trying to create.
And Ismark thinks about that for a moment and ushers you guys inside, closes the door behind you, and now you're all sort of trapped inside this mausoleum-like edifice.
I feel like trapped is a strong choice of words.
Well, all the windows are boarded up, so it's like very claustrophobic.
Okay, so in this example, you can see that Chris Perkins, while running Curse of Strahd for his Dice Camera Action Season 1 show, uses the word trapped. And when he uses that word trapped, he's describing the characters entering a friendly location. So why would he use it? To maintain that horror tone of the adventure. Here's a preparation tip for you. If you're trying to maintain a certain theme or tone or atmosphere or emotion to your adventure, to your campaign, you can brainlist a list of words in advance of your games and then use them throughout the game session to inspire that feeling you're going for. Something else. Number 7, an RPG can be anything you want it to be. The lesson here is to not feel limited or restricted by what the game or people who play it say it should be. The game can be anything you want it to be, whether you're playing D&D, Pathfinder, Savage Worlds, Fate, Shadowrun, or something else. In the example here, Brendan Lee Mulligan is introducing several of his Dimension 20 campaigns, none of which are traditional D&D fantasy, even though they use the D&D game system. These are examples of all the cool things that you can do with an RPG system. Okay, so in this clip right here, Brennan is introducing The Unsleeping City, a game set in modern fantasy New York.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start to bring us to this new land of myth and magic that might seem eerily familiar to some of our viewers at home. It is a snowy, blustery day, cold, crisp, clear skies over the best skyline of any city that has ever been or will ever be. It is New York City, baby! Snow flurries from the sky as the wind kicks up. We see gusts of freezing air blow past the Chrysler Building, down through streets of honking cabs and just miserable looking pedestrians who crowd into the tunnels.
Okay, for this one right here, Brennan is introducing Fantasy High, a John Hughes-esque high school drama set in a fantasy world high school.
This season marks the beginning of our adventure into the world of Fantasy High, where we ask the question that has long gone unasked. What would happen if John Hughes ran a game of a tabletop RPG? And we're gonna find out today. Swords, high school, puberty, magic, it's all coming together.
And then we have Brennan introducing A Crown of Candy, an adventure set in a world where everyone and everything is some kind of snack food.
There was once a kingdom known as Candia. Wind sweeps over vast plains and rolling hills of chocolate chip cookie fields. Here, in a vast realm of sweet things and peppermint forests, high in the distance, the northern peaks of the Great Stone Candy Mountains, as swirling snowstorms of ice cream winds peel over the horizon. We see tall trees of ancient lolly orchards and our sugar cube farmers toiling the fields.
Great, now tell me what you think. What GM lessons have you learned over the years that other folks might find helpful? And don't forget to back The Secret Art of Game Mastery at the link below. We got some amazing special offers only available during the first few days of the Kickstarter. Now, if you'd like to learn how to instantly improve your role-playing game, check out this video right here. This one thing can be the difference between a great game and a bad game. And until next time, happy game mastering.